The preacher sought to find words of delight, and upright he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and the nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. There is that wonderful title that Jesus embraces and brings before us concerning himself. Here is the answer to the vanity. The answer will be found from the one shepherd, the chief shepherd, the good shepherd, and that is Christ himself.
Putting life in biblical perspective with Dr. Harry L. Reeder. This is In Perspective, a radio and internet ministry of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelical. Carl Sandburg said, "Life is like an onion. You peel it back one layer at a time and weep as you do." This sentiment is echoed in the book of Ecclesiastes, as it examines the implications of life without God. Ecclesiastes honestly examines life in a fallen world, forces us to examine our pursuit for meaning and purpose, and reveals where that search will ultimately lead us. Stay with us now as Dr. Reeder continues our series, From Vanity to Vitality, Ecclesiastes in Biblical Perspective. Let's turn to Ecclesiastes chapters 1 and 2 for part 1 of the message, Is There Any Hope?
Turn with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 1 in our second study of this book. Before I get to it, let me back up and come at it this way. Our first parents, of course, are Adam and Eve. Satan having fallen, we're not given the timetable on this, the fall of Satan, but we do know upon his fall, he comes deceptively with deceit as well as a deceptive appearance as a serpent. And then he comes to draw Adam and Eve into sin by questioning the veracity of God and also drawing their heart and their soul to take the place of God. That life is not you made in the image of God for the glory of God. Life is for you to take the place of God. God doesn't want you to do that. That's why God says, don't eat of that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And they succumb to the temptation and they eat and they find out that life apart from God, life under the sun, as if you are God, actually brings death. It brings spiritual death, brings physical death, and it brings you under the judgment of eternal death. Immediately they begin to want to solve the meaningless that is experienced through their fear, their shame, and their guilt. So the first effort, their first solution, are the sewing together of the leaves as loin coverings, or as it says in the Geneva Bible, breeches, and then the hiding behind the trees, and then finally the attempt to cover up by playing the victim. Adam, where are you? Well, Lord, I was naked and I hid myself. Well, the fact is he wasn't naked, was he? Fact is he had his breeches. The fact is he was hiding behind trees. But our solutions to our fear, shame, and guilt and meaningless of our sin never suffice. So he still sensed his fear and his shame and his guilt. And then he tries one more solution. Well, I'm not responsible. I'm a victim. The woman whom you gave me, she's the one. So he developed a pathology of victimhood. The sin actually that I participated in is because of the woman. I have a dysfunctional wife, and by the way, I've got a dysfunctional God because you gave me my wife, the woman you gave me. But it doesn't work. Now I want you to fast forward to the book of Ecclesiastes with me. We're about to be exposed to the same dynamic with clarity by the writer of Ecclesiastes. Now, of course, the question that we attempted to answer is, who is this writer of Ecclesiastes? Well, historically in the church, it has always been pretty much accepted that it is Solomon. But since then, there have been those that have questioned it. So who do we think it is? Well, let's start out by reading the first 11 verses. Would you look at that with me in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 1 through 11? The words of the preacher. Well, whoever this writer is, he's anonymous, literally, but he's starting to give us clues in that he is called the preacher. And that's a word that in the Hebrew means the conductor. It could mean a preacher, a speaker, a professor, a procurator, one who is over an assembly, leading the assembly by speaking to it. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Well, immediately you can see why historically people would think it is Solomon. Why? Because Solomon on more than one occasion assembled the people of God and stood as a procurator, stood as a preacher before them. Solomon, of course, is the son of David. Solomon, of course, is king in Jerusalem. What does this preacher, son of David and king in Jerusalem, now pronounce? Here's his message. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind. And on its circuits, then the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. So here is his opening declaration in which, my goodness, what a beginning to a sermon. I'm just about ready to take a gun and put it to my head by the time I'm through with his introduction. All is vanity. Everything is vanity, and he begins to articulate it. Now, Pastor, obviously you've already kind of led me to the fact that you think it's Solomon, and I do think it's Solomon. Well, why would anybody not think it's Solomon? Well, because when you go through the whole book of Ecclesiastes, there are some phrases that would be found in the Babylonian and Persian empires, which were after the reign of Solomon. And then secondly, later on, he'll talk about having been king in Jerusalem, but multiple kings that have gone before him. Well, you and I know that if this is Solomon, there was Saul, there was David, and there was him. There weren't multiple kings. There were just seemingly two. And thirdly, there are references to what have been known as Greek philosophical declarations and considerations such as Epicureanism and cynicism, skepticism, and stoicism, as well as hedonism. And so, well, the Greeks, of course, came after this. You've got Solomon, and you've got the United Kingdom, and then you have the division of the kingdom, and then you have the Assyrian Empire, and the Babylonian Empire, and the Persian Empire, and then the Greek Empire, and then the Roman Empire. So they're all later. So many people have now postulated this is not Solomon in the 10th century BC. This is a writer in the 6th century after Israel has been in captivity, and you can hear the language and the philosophies they would have been exposed to. And so this is post-Second Temple. One of the prophets, and of course Ezra is usually everyone's chief culprit of this. And basically what Ezra is doing is given like a first-person sermon. He's taking on the mantle of Solomonic wisdom. Well, I've heard the scholars say that, and I've actually studied under a number of scholars that have said that, but I'm just not convinced. And, well, Harry, what's your answers to the objections? Well, my answers are this. Yes, there were only two Israeli kings before Solomon in Jerusalem. One was David and one was Saul, but there were multiple kings in Jerusalem before Saul and David. It was a Jebusite city with Jebusite kings. So I have no doubt that there were kings before Solomon who reigned in Jerusalem that even predated King Saul and David, his father. And secondly, I think the language that takes on these borrowed phrases from Babylon and Persia were very likely later copyists of this book. who had been influenced by those, and they are just putting it in the language of the people after they had returned from the Babylonian captivity. And thirdly, the philosophical propositions of the Greeks, while they awaited the Greeks to give them names according to the philosophers, the philosophies were around long before them. You can find them even embedded in the book of Proverbs. So I think it's Solomon who is writing, but I think the one who is really writing this and is going to bring us to the gospel answers to this seeming despair throughout this book is Jesus. Now let me try to show you from the text where I believe that's true. Keep your finger there, if you would, and go with me over to the end of the book, Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, and if you will, go with me to this, it's just an absolutely extraordinary declaration of a summation that we get to. And here's what it says. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men are bent and grinders cease, though they are few. And what is it that is going to take place? Well, slip down, if you would, to verse 5. They are afraid also of what is high, and the terrors in the way. The almond tree blossomed, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails because man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. And the dust returns to the east as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher, all is vanity. Besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and upright he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and the nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. There is that wonderful title that Jesus embraces and brings before us concerning himself. Here is the answer to the vanity. The answer will be found from the one shepherd, the chief shepherd, the great shepherd, the good shepherd, and that is Christ himself. And what is it that Christ is going to tell us? Well, the first thing he does is he brings us to the reality of the bad news of what sin has done. Sin has brought meaningless even to those things that God has created to experience under the sun. When you experience him under the sun, that is vanity. Many times we want to talk to people about life after death, but to properly understand life after death, you also have to understand life before death. The life that is under the sun. And he makes a declaration of vanity, pervasive vanity, all is vanity. When all is said and all is done, all is vanity under the sun. The word vanity means a vapor. It means meaningless. So that's what Solomon is saying. And by the way, I think it's very important for this to be seen as Solomonic, because it fits, first of all, in the trilogy of the Song of Solomon, Proverbs, and also now this Ecclesiastes. I believe in a sense what you see in Ecclesiastes is Solomon's statement of repentance at the end of his life. Here's where I was drawn to. I started out well. Hear my wisdom that I ask of God early on in my reign. Find it in Proverbs. Here is my heart. Find it in the Song of Solomon. And here is my repentance. And that is found in the book of Ecclesiastes. And when you get through with Ecclesiastes, where are you brought? Fear the Lord, which is what? According to Proverbs, the beginning of wisdom. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord. And that's where he's taking us. But first of all, he takes us to life under the sun. Life under the sun. And what does it mean to live this life? Because in the midst of this life, that life keeps bringing us to meaninglessness. When I was a kid, there was a program that used to be on called Hee Haw. It was one of extraordinary intellectual insight and genius. If you really want to know the deep thoughts around the world, everybody watched Hee Haw. And the song that was sung at each episode was gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression. Oh my goodness. By the time they finished that song, I just wanted to grab a gun and shoot myself when it was over. But they'd sing it every single week. Well, that's basically what Solomon's singing for you. Gloom, despair, in every experience, in every day, in every moment. Empty, meaningless. It's nothing. Life under the sun. Life lived apart from the transcendence of God, the answers of God, the solutions of God. Life under the sun. It's temporary. It seems as if the earth has the victory. It seems that it's nothing but what goes around comes around. And instead of the joy of a linear world and life view of a beginning coming to a glorious consummation, it just seems to be the meaningless repetition of anything and everything you experience. And he begins to lay some out in your text, doesn't he? I find it absolutely insightful that many things that we have not yet discovered when this is written or seem to be accommodated in this text. For instance, he seems to, while looking at it from the experience of life, that we see the sun rising and the sun setting, he gives you an insight that maybe there's something more. And that something more is something's rotating, something's revolving. As the sun rises, the sun sets and hastens back to its beginning. So what we know, it hastens not by its movement, but by the earth's movement, its circular movement. And then he doesn't stop there. He goes to the circular movements of the wind, something that was yet to be found out, of how the winds blow and the prevailing winds and how they blow to the south and then around to the north and then goes around. The circuits of the wind go round and then they return to blow again. And then there's even this indication of the hydrological cycle. You've got the water being collected in the streams running to the sea, but the sea doesn't fill up to overflowing. Why? Because, as you know, the evaporation takes place, and now all of it hastens back to its beginning again. And the rains come, and the streams fill up. And so here, the writer Solomon, inspired by the Spirit, is anticipating scientific experiments, but in the midst of it, what he is communicating is utter despair. He says, my eye will see something glorious, beautiful, but it's only for a moment. It's only for a moment of experience, and then I need more. I need something else. I need my eye to see more than what I've seen. My ear hears something, and it's filled up, but then it empties out, and now I need to hear something else. I experience something. What I have experienced, I have, but now what I've experienced will be, and what is done has been done. Now it's empty. I need another experience. I need something else to be done. I need something new. That what I've had, seen, heard, felt, touched, that not only is there seemingly just a meaningless repetition of one day to the next, one cycle to the next, one experience to the next. After I've experienced it, it's empty and I need something else new. And in fact, unless I write it down, I soon forget it. There is no remembrance, nor would there be any remembrance. The latter things, they are as meaningless as the former things. What is the answer to this emptiness? What is the answer to this despair? What is the answer to this, well, just boring? Just boring. And what I've experienced that I think is going to remove the boring or see or encounter soon gets as empty as I was before I saw it, heard it, felt it, experienced it. Well, the preacher says, under the sun, I'm going to look for a solution. And he comes up with 4 solutions. Let's walk our way through the 4 solutions that he brings to this emptiness. Certainly there is salvation somewhere to this meaningless under the sun. Where is the solution under the sun? Well, he gives the first solution in verse 12. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven, under the sun. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, or what is twisted cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. So I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after the wind, for in much wisdom is much vexation. He who increases in knowledge increases in sorrow. He said, I experienced things. There's nothing but emptiness. I saw things that were twisted. Have you ever had something twisted? I like the way one preacher said, he gave the illustration. Have you ever taken a coat hanger apart and twisted it? Can you put it back? No. Tell me how long you try to do that. I'll tell you how much time you wasted. That's madness. That's vexation. What has become twisted under the sun through sin, you can't put it back. Okay. I know the answer to this. Don't try to put it back. Try to understand this madness. I need another degree. I need to enroll in another school. I know what it is, education. Does that sound familiar? You see all of the problems? All we need to do is school's the answer, right? And the only problem is the school gets full of the same vanity and the same madness. And the answer isn't education. Now, can I fast forward? That doesn't mean education's bad. That doesn't mean we dismiss it. Go read the book of Proverbs. But the education under the sun is not the solution. It is as empty as what you're trying to understand. And now you have educated yourself into imbecility. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God, even in all the sophistication of the education. Life under the sun is a life that is not solved by education, because the education that's under the sun is as vain as that which you're trying to understand with the education. So here, he's looking for wisdom under the sun, but then he finds out, my life that is so twisted, I can't straighten it out with education. My experience and what I'm seeing in life and the culture that surrounds me that is so empty and so meaningless, I can't transform that culture nor reform my life with this education. Not the education that's under the sun. Life under the sun is empty. Life under the sun cannot be touched by education that is under the sun. It simply adds to the meaningless. In that wisdom, look at that last verse, and that wisdom is much vexation. In that knowledge, when it increases, it only increases the despair and the sorrow. Is the issue the problem of education? No, the issue is the notion of the idolatry of education that's content is under the sun.
Ecclesiastes honestly examines life. It forces us to examine our pursuit for meaning and purpose and reveals where that search will ultimately lead us. You are listening to In Perspective, featuring the teaching of Dr. Harry L. Reeder. When we do a study or give a lot of attention to the Christian family, what about those who remain single? Dr. Reeder shares a biblical view of singleness and reveals the joy of this unique calling. Call 1-800-488-1888 or visit inperspective.org to request your free copy of the series by Dr. Reeder, 7 Essentials for the Christian Family. This series is our gift to you, our way of saying thanks for listening. Would you consider helping us to keep In Perspective's uncompromising message of God's truth on the air and on the internet? You can send a single gift or become a monthly supporter by visiting our website at inperspective.org. You could call instead at 1-800-488-1888, and our mailing address is 600 Eden Road, Lancaster, Pennsylvania 17601. Remember, you can listen to In Perspective anytime, anywhere via the Alliance app. Learn more at alliancenet.org/app. And once again, our gift offer to you is the series 7 Essentials for the Christian Family. Call 1-800-488-1888. C.S. Lewis wrote, "I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy." Join us again next time as Dr. Reeder examines how Ecclesiastes reveals a deep, abiding longing for God Himself. That's next time as we turn back to the Scriptures to put life in biblical perspective.